bank concept. I know many of you have heard about this already, and this webinar is meant to be a high-level overview of the approach and how bank works and how we're seeing it work in businesses like yours. So we're going to breeze through this pretty high level and quickly, and then we'll leave time for questions at the end and can follow up with further detailed conversations as well. But just to start and give you a little bit of an overview about me, my name is Jamie Adam Tates, and I am the CEO of Keystone Strategy Group. And we are an organization that's focused on helping businesses build sales and customer retention and really accelerate their growth through those two components. And my background is in large Fortune 10 company from a corporate standpoint, and 4 years as a CEO and entrepreneur. And really built my business around helping businesses grow and helping businesses grow in a unique and kind of differentiated way, which is exactly where bank comes in and how bank plays into our overall business strategy and what we do in this market. So I always start with this slide just because I like to level set for people. When we talk about sales, from all of our businesses, it doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or you're running, a multi-million-dollar business. The ability to sell is always going to be the number one skill in business. And when we talk about selling, we're talking about selling not just in terms of the people that have the title of salesperson in your organization, but we believe that everybody in your organization is in sales. Everybody that comes in contact with your customer, whether it's through marketing, face-to-face, over the phone, is actually selling with each of those touches and each of those interactions with your customers. And so we are kind of setting out to redefine how businesses look at sales, and so they can look at it as a skill that they really need to spread across their entire organization to really get that strong, sustainable growth. So just a little bit of information here. These stats are something that was pretty intriguing to me as a business owner myself. And so I always want to share them. And they're from Salesforce.com. And Salesforce.com does they do a lot of statistics around the sales process, how people engage with the sales process. And what they've determined is that on average, 67% of people who rely on sales for a living, meaning a business owner or a typical salesperson, 67% of them miss their quotas. Meaning 2 out of 3 salespeople are not hitting their goals. And even if you're a solopreneur, that's the goals you set for yourself, right? The income you want to make, the number of sales you want to make this year. And that's a pretty big detriment to any business. I don't care what kind of business you're in. An even bigger issue is that Salesforce.com shows that 87% of salespeople do not feel adequately prepared going into the sales conversation, right? Meeting with a potential prospect or someone new. And when we look at that, that's astronomical in terms of the negative impact it can have on your business. And the most interesting piece about this to me is this is not saying that you don't know about your product or your service, right? What we are really saying here is that you don't feel confident going into that meeting because you're dealing with another human being. Right? And how many of us know that human beings they're unpredictable? We don't know what they need. Sometimes it's hard to connect with them. And so that not feeling adequately prepared is not being prepared for the questions, the challenges, the information that person sitting across from us might need. And that's a big piece of what we solve with bank. And then the last piece, that's no surprise, that 66% of our customers report being turned off by the sales process. Meaning whatever we're presenting to them, they feel like it's not for them, right? That we're selling to them versus serving them. So these numbers, it's no surprise that many of us have been accustomed and trained to believe that sales is a numbers game, right? And you can all test this theory that somewhere, somehow you learned that in order to get more yeses, you have to get more nos. Right? We can all fill in the blank. And none of us, whenever I ask, people about this, where did you learn that? No one knows. We just know that we've been trained that you have to just keep talking to people, get 10 people through your funnel in order to get one to say yes kind of thing. And personally, I think first off, the times are changing, right? And how we look at business. But I also think that that is an absolutely ridiculous way to look at business. But it's where the way many companies have looked at it, the way they've trained their salespeople. But I believe that instead of just going after more no's in order to get a few more yeses to pop out, what if we just focused on getting more yeses? And it sounds very logical, and people kind of chuckle when I bring this up, but instead of just rushing through and just trying to get more people through your funnel, what if we slowed down and actually concentrated on the person that's sitting across from us, who, number one, is a prospect, but also is a great referral source, and probably has, over the course of that customer, the lifespan of that customer with our business, has a really high return. There's a lot of business you could potentially do with them. Why do we hustle through and try to just get through people in order to get more yeses, instead of slowing down and really taking the time to make sure what we're presenting is something that makes sense for them, right? In order to make a decision. And that's the whole concept behind Why They Buy. Some of you might be familiar with this book. It's available. You can order it online. But the whole premise behind this book is brilliant, in that it takes a completely different look at the traditional sales industry, right? What we all know as traditional sales. And instead of teaching people how to sell, and the sales training industry in the United States alone is $5 billion a year. Companies and individuals are spending $5 billion a year to try to get better at sales. But the thing that they're missing is that being better at sales and following a 10-step sales process that some book tells you or that some seminar tells you is not actually what gets you the sale. It's understanding why the customer buys and making that connection. So I can have the best 10-step sales process on the planet, and it's not going to guarantee that I get the sale. So that's where bank comes in. And that's why we are so passionate about this concept. And it really is a concept. It's a shift in your paradigm. It's a shift in your thought process, to just look at things differently. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So again, we're going to stay high level. We're not going to go into all the details. We've got training programs and different things you can do to learn more. And we will leave time at the end to answer any questions that you have, but we want to make sure we get through this information so you can start to understand how this concept works. And to start with, I want to talk a little bit about the science of bank. And when we talk about bank is based in a science that we call personality science. And what this means, this is not something that we invented. We do not claim to have invented this. But what it is it's personality science that's been it's kind of studied and understood for 2,500 years. In 400 BC, if you've ever heard of Hippocrates, he was known as the father of medicine, and he was a Greek physician. And what he started to do is realize that when he studied people, and he studied the interactions of people, and he started to treat his clients, his patients, according to their temperament, that they healed faster and they didn't come back. And so what he developed was what they call nowadays the theory of the four temperaments. And he incorporated it into his medical practice. And he determined that he could divide the entire human race up into 4 different temperaments. And since then, this has been studied and proven, and white papers and companies and organizations have studied this theory of the 4 temperaments, and they've applied it in a lot of different forms. So as you can see on the screen, I'm guessing most everyone on this call has taken some form of a personality assessment, whether it's DISC, Myers-Briggs, the color code. There's hundreds of these assessments out there. I can tell you what vegetable you are, what animal you are, what color you are. I mean, they've taken this exact same science. So none of these assessments have invented new science. And many people don't realize that. They've taken this theory of the 4 temperaments and they've just looked at it from different lenses, right? How you show up in situations. Are you an introvert and extrovert, right? How you interact with people. And so they've been able to put words and psychology around the 4 temperaments and really diagnose and help you understand from a self-awareness standpoint how you show up, who you are, why you are the way you are. And all of us take these personality assessments for one reason, because we're fascinated by human beings and we're fascinated by ourselves. That's really why we do it. And most of us get these reports back, and you've probably all experienced this, that when you get the report, you read it and you're fascinated by the fact that they can pinpoint exactly who you are without ever knowing you. And that proves that this science is really rooted in that personality science. And that's how they're able to really predict who you are based on how you answer the questions. But the difference between all of these personality assessments and what we're talking about is every single one of these is based in psychology, right? So the science of like human nature and human behavior. Bank is the first assessment on the market and the only assessment, and that's been proven by a white paper and a study that San Francisco State University did, that we're the only one that's able to take a look at the same personality science, but from the lens of buying behavior. And this is what has really catapulted Bank into the market and where it's at today, because everyone else is looking at it from a psychology standpoint, and we're looking at it from the science of buying behavior. And if your values and your personality impact your buying behaviors, and it's been proven that they do. And so what we're teaching and training is that that piece is really important. And in fact, it's the missing link to actually building a sustainable business and building that growth in your business. And so that's the whole concept. So when we look at Bank and we look at personality science being proven, right, 2,500 years of science backing it up. And as most of you know and have learned, if you've listened to Tony Robbins at all, the big thing that he preaches is that your prospect, meaning the person sitting across the table from you or the person on the other end of the phone, should determine your presentation, right? You should alter your approach based on that person. So very logical. Most of us would agree with this statement that, of course, that makes sense. But what no one has ever been able to do before is say, if you should let your prospect determine your presentation, how do I know what my prospect is and how they buy and how I should sell to them, how I should share my information? And most of us do not have 4 different scripts, 4 different presentations and approaches for every single product or service that we offer. Yet we've said that personality science is proven and that we all believe that we should let our prospect determine our presentation, yet we don't really do it. We present the information, and we make the biggest mistake of all because we present it in the language, in the approach that makes the most sense to us as individuals. And what happens is 1 out of 4 times we have an opportunity to connect with that other person because they may speak the same language as us. And I use the analogy of language to help people understand this. If there's 4 personality types, 4 temperaments, think of it like 4 distinct languages. And as we get a little further today, I'm going to show you how the language is very different and how you would talk to these people. And you'll start to see how this really works. But back to this is we talk in our primary dominant language most of the time. And what happens is 3 out of 4 times, the person that we're speaking to hears us. They might even really like us. But the information and the way we're sharing it is not landing for them. It's not actually connecting their heart and their head and saying, okay, I get what she's saying. I understand why this product or service could help me, because we're not using words that trigger that person to connect. And that's what Bank comes and helps us do, is it actually teaches us how to speak all 4 languages, and in the moment being able to adjust our presentation or our approach to match that person. And so another interesting stat here that I've got on the screen is from the Chally Group. And the Chally Group is an organizational kind of interaction company where they study people and they study how people interact. And they did a study that was around kind of this buying behavior. And they determined that 18% of buyers will buy from a salesperson who doesn't match the buyer's personality. So what this means is that if I need your product or service bad enough, it doesn't matter if the personalities match. Imagine my internet or phone service at home, right? Most of us would say we aren't pleased with the service that we get from those service providers. But most of us also have limited options, and I need internet. So I have to buy from you even though you don't serve me. And when you communicate with me, it's never in a way that really serves me and makes me want to be a loyal customer, but I don't have another choice. Versus 82% success of buying when the personality types are aligned. So that is a huge gap. And I don't know about you, but I'd much rather be on the 82% side of this equation. But what this really means is not that I have to be someone different when I'm talking to you. It means I have to serve you and know what you need and alter my approach to give you what you need, right? And not manipulate the situation. We're actually doing the opposite of manipulation because we're being open and transparent about what we're doing and why we're serving the other person with this information, because we know it's what they need to hear in order to make a decision. And that's really what this statistic talks about. And then when we talk to organizations, business leaders, teams of people, right, that are building an organization or building a business, we talk about the concept of the sales velocity equation. And again, this is not something we created. You can Google this. Salesforce.com created this. There's a lot of information on the web about this equation. But in terms of selling and in terms of bank and how this system and this concept can improve your sales, right, your ultimate growth of your company, we talk about 4 factors in the sales velocity equation. And the first factor is the number of sales opportunities that you work. So think about this as your prospects, right? Your funnel. How many people are getting, how many leads are you getting? How many referral sources are you getting? And how many people are coming into your lead funnel that you're then able to engage with? And what we talk about is when you go deeper with your current customers, your current prospects, what happens to your funnel is your funnel starts to fill itself. So think about a flywheel where if you've got a strong base of customers that you serve, every touch you have with them, whether it's your marketing, it's, you know, your team that talks to them, you talk to them, and you're serving them throughout the entire process, not just the sale. Those people are naturally going to refer more people to you and more people to your business. And when you're able to create that deeper connection with them and really understand them, you're differentiating yourself and therefore increasing the funnel, increasing the amount of referrals. And that's really something that we see can have a huge impact on a growing business, because you don't have to go out and find all of those leads yourself if you've got strong referral sources that are sending people to you. The second factor in the sales velocity equation is the deal value. And again, when you're meeting with somebody and you're sharing information in their language and they're really resonating with what you're saying and they understand it, the chances of them wanting to do even more business with you than maybe they originally planned or even you planned is very high. So think of a service company. And if I'm treated really well and I have one service with that company and I feel like every time I engage with them, it's a super strong relationship. They provide me a high level of service. The chances of me going back to that company and saying, can you also help me over here? Can you help me with this need as well? Before I go to anybody else is very high. And so therefore we are naturally increasing the deal value of the products or services that they buy from us because they trust us deeper than they trust anybody else, or even anybody else that they could potentially buy the services or products from. The third factor that we talk about, and it's the one that most of us probably pay the most attention to, is win rate. So Salesforce.com would say on average, if 10 warm leads come into our funnel, come into our business, we on average close between 3 and 4 of those leads, the average business or the average salesperson. 30 to 40% of warm leads, meaning these people are ready to make a decision, ready to buy something, they're intrigued by your product or service, and we still aren't able to close them. And with bank, we teach you the language, the words to use to make sure that every interaction, every opportunity you get with a lead, that you're able to increase the potential that you're going to close them, right? That they're going to really believe in what you're saying because you're speaking in their language. And then the last factor that almost no entrepreneurs or small business owners think about, but is so important and can be a huge detriment to your business if not monitored and really looked at, is the length of the sales cycle. So what we're talking about here with bank specifically is not that we are going to guarantee you close 100% of everybody that comes through. That's not realistic in any business. But what we are going to guarantee is that you are going to bring that person to make a decision quicker. And that decision might be to buy your product or service, and it might not be. But instead of having to meet with them 3, 4, 5 times to get them to make a decision, which could still be no, we want to meet with them once. Provide the information that we know they need because we know their buying style, and get them to make a decision in that meeting or maybe 2 meetings, and really save ourselves time and money. Because as business leaders, our ability to grow is our ability to keep moving and be talking to more and more people. And when we've got to meet with 5 people, somebody 5 times for them to make a decision, it impedes our ability to grow. So we always include that sales velocity equation. It's just really something important that we think everybody should look at in terms of their business and really start measuring this, because it'll tell you where those gaps are in your business and in your sales process, really. So now I want to talk through the bank system itself. So when we talk about the system, we mean the 4 different types and the 4 different buying styles that we're talking about. And again, I'm going to keep this very high level. This is not meant to go into detail in any way. But by the end of this, as I describe these 4, all I want you to really grasp, hopefully by the end of this, is that you would be foolish to not start to think about your presentation and your information that you bring to a meeting according to these 4 types, because all 4 types need something so distinctly different. So the first one that we're going to talk about is our blueprint type. And our blueprints are the color blue for a reason. So we think about an architectural blueprint is kind of the visual I want you to have in your head. So very structured, very inside the box, very conservative. So blueprints tend to be people that are much more conservative and like to avoid risk. So as you can see on the screen here, I'm giving you some examples of what we call a blueprint's invisible buying values. And I want to say that again. These are invisible buying values, meaning a blueprint buying personality is never going to sit down with you and say, hey, by the way, before you get started, I just want you to know that I really value stability, structure, systems, and planning. Because the blueprint buying style doesn't realize that's what they value. They just know whether or not your approach, your product, your service, the information you share with them meets their needs, right? They know whether or not they leave that meeting thinking, that's a fascinating product. This is something I want to buy because it really, makes sense to me. But they don't know to give you that information. They just know that it either feels good or it doesn't, right? At the end of the sales process. And what we teach is that you have an ability to actually alter that sales process to make them feel good at the end when you know what their buying style is. The next personality type is the action buying style or personality code. And the action could not be more different than the blueprint in how they buy. So the blueprint is inside the box. The action is on the other end of the spectrum, very outside of the box. They do not like to be constrained. They like things like freedom, flexibility, spontaneity, opportunity. So when you're talking to an action, you want to talk about how your product or service can help them achieve this, because this is ultimately what they're looking for in the products and services they buy. Whether it's a car or it's a training system or it's literally a product that they ingest every day. I mean, it doesn't matter, because what they're looking for in that product is completely different than a blueprint. Just look at the first four values alone: freedom, flexibility, spontaneity, and action. If you said those words, and this is your dominant style, to a blueprint, the blueprint is immediately turned off because they don't care about freedom and flexibility. They want structure and process. They want to understand the predictability of your product or your service, where the actions want to understand how it's going to make them look better, feel better, or win. Right? That's actually what matters to them. And unless we can connect with that buying trigger, we're likely not going to get the sale. Right? They're going to go on to another product or service that they believe provides them that. The third buying value or buying style is our nurturers. And nurturers care more about making a difference than they do about making a dollar. So it doesn't mean that nurturers don't want to make money, just to be clear, but nurturers care more about the relationship before they care about what your product or your service is. So when you look at the values of a nurturer, and again, these are buying values. This is what triggers them to want to enter into a buying agreement or that buying process with somebody. They value things like relationships and authenticity, right? A sense of community and charity, and that they're contributing to something bigger. So when you're meeting with the nurturer, if you take the action style approach to your presentation, even if that's your natural style, a nurturer is immediately going to feel like you're selling to them, right? Because you're talking about winning, and you're talking about freedom and flexibility and making them look good, and a nurturer just wants to get to know you. You may not even talk business till the very end of the meeting with a nurturer, because they want to understand who you are, why you do what you do. Like, what about your product or service? What's your why, right? Why do you believe in this product and service? And how have you built your business? They want to get a lot deeper with you than just talking about your product. And most of us stumble with this, because if you are not a high nurturer naturally, you don't naturally go to wanting to ask someone about their kids or their family or their life or their vacation. Many people just want to get down to business. And when you do that with a nurturer, they immediately feel like all you care about is the sale. And they might sit there. They could sit there for the whole hour and listen to you talk. But the entire time they're thinking, I'm not going to buy anything from this person because they don't care about me. So you've got to make them really believe, and you have to care about them. It's not just make them believe that. You have to show up in that way. The last buying style is what we call our knowledge personality type. And the knowledge are the people that tend to be much quieter, a bit more introverted in the buying process. But what we say is they're oftentimes the most intelligent people in the room. They're just not like the action or the nurturer, where they're going to be overly emotional or they're going to be the first to talk. Knowledge are going to be the first to be silent. They're going to be the internal processors that need to understand the information you're giving them and process it before they respond, before they ask their next question. And so the knowledge personality types have buying values that are around learning and intelligence. They want the science. They want to be an expert and really understand your product or service. So for many of us that aren't high knowledge, when we meet with someone who is high knowledge, it can sometimes come across as they don't believe what we're talking about, because they're asking a ton of questions and they're kind of poking holes in all of the information that we're giving them. And what most people don't understand is most people just kind of give up in the sales process with the knowledge, because they feel like, well, this person just doesn't value what I'm bringing, what I'm talking about, and all they're doing is questioning everything I tell them. When what we teach in our training is that that's just how the knowledge buys. It is nothing personal about you. It's actually giving them what they need, because for every question they ask you, they understand your product a little bit more. They become more of an expert. And ultimately what you're trying to do is make it logical for them, where they get it. Like, okay, this is a no-brainer decision that I should buy this product or service. And what most of us do is we allow the knowledge buying type to get stuck in analysis paralysis. And they can get stuck in that forever. that we will not be able to get them out of doing their research. For those of you, I'll give you a great example. For those of you who sell a product or service, or products specifically, when you talk to a knowledge type, they're probably going to ask you about the science. What are the studies that have been done on this product? How can you prove that it works? Right? They're asking you these questions and you don't know the answer. Do you think you show up as confident about your product or service? Absolutely not. And so they immediately start to second guess. And it's not that they don't like you, it's that they begin to second guess your product or service because you're not giving them what they need. Versus if I know I'm meeting with a knowledge personality type, I'm going to show up to the very first meeting with all of the data and studies and facts and figures printed out that I can leave with them. And immediately that person looks at me differently and says, she gets me because this is the stuff I was going to ask about anyway. And immediately they're deeper into that relationship with you automatically. And so you'll start to see in our training, there's a lot of detail here on how you can pull these different levers and really give them what they want. But there's definitely a science behind what we're doing. So the good news is you can predict the buying behavior, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The bad news is the dominant code is not the only part of the factor, right? It's the entire code because we're parts of all four. We have a dominant buying style, but we actually are parts of all four. So knowing someone's entire code is actually the holy grail, is the most intriguing piece of this, because it is just as important for you to know that I'm a high nurturer as it is for you to know that my knowledge is so low that I don't care about stats and data, and that's not how I'm going to make a buying decision. And it doesn't mean my intelligence is low. It just means that doesn't factor in to whether or not I decide to buy your product. And the worst part is that you have a 4% chance of the person sitting across from you or the person on the phone being the exact same code as you, which is not a great percentage to build a business on. And what most of us do is we guess. So we assume what somebody is. And instead of guessing, what we talk about is that you should just ask, right? We should be transparent and we should ask them. So we'll talk about solutions and different ways to ask. But before we do that, I thought it'd be kind of fun. I threw in a script for buying a car, because that's something that kind of all of us can relate to. For those of you who have spouses or significant others, as we're going through this, I want you to think about how you go into making a buying decision to buy a car and how your spouse or significant other goes in, right? And how these scripts actually pertain to each of you, and you don't make the buying decision in the same way. So think about these scripts being the exact same car salesman, right? The exact same dealership. And he or she is altering their approach based on the person that's sitting across from them and what matters in terms of their buying style. So I want you to guess what each of these scripts is as I kind of touch on the high points of it. So the very first one is the car salesman would talk about, I'm excited to have the opportunity to work with you, to get you into the car of your dreams, right? This car has been a bestseller. All of our high-end clients, right? It's a limited edition model, meaning there's only so many of them and not everybody's going to get one. So you better decide soon because it's going to be gone before the end of the week. So I want you to take a guess. And here we're talking to the action personality style. Actions are fast decision makers. They buy things on a whim. And they will buy something because they like the color, they like the style, they don't put a ton of thought into it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But from a buying standpoint, if you keep talking when an action has already sold themselves on your product or service, you single-handedly can lose the sale in front of your eyes because they don't want to keep talking about it. They've already made a decision. Where do I sign? Let's keep moving. And so you've got to be able to really move with them when they want to move, even if that's not the way you would do it. The second script here talks about being a 20-year veteran of the auto industry, right? I have a duty and responsibility to provide a predictable and structured process to help you find the perfect car. I want you to take as much time as you need. Here, we're clearly talking to the blueprint personality type. And here's why. We're talking about our years in the auto industry. right? Blueprints value predictability. You've been in this industry for 20 years. You've seen it all. There's nothing that's going to happen here that's going to be unpredictable, right? There's no risk in this transaction because I know you've done this a lot of times. Duty and responsibility, right? I feel like it's my duty. If you use words like duty, responsibility, process with an action personality type in the buying process, they are going to tune you out. They are going to stop listening because words like duty and responsibility mean nothing to them. It doesn't excite them. It doesn't make them want to talk to you further. So you can start to see how these scripts really need to be altered depending on the person that you're speaking to. So the third script, we talk about, we know you have a lot of options and we value your willingness to learn and do research and get expertise on those technical advances, right? We appreciate the intelligent car buyer. When you say those words, you are speaking to a knowledge personality type. And essentially what you are telling them is we appreciate all of the work and research that you do before you even walk in our door, and we want to value that. And immediately that person feels like you get me, right? That you value what I value, and I want to do business with you. And of course, the last one, we talk about creating a long-lasting relationship, earning your trust. We give back to our local community, personal service. In this script, the word car appears once, and it's in the last 6 words of the script. We don't even talk about the car or the product or the service until the very end, because we're talking to them about how we value relationships and everything that comes ahead of buying the car. So what I want to do through just showing you these scripts is you can start to see at a very simplistic level how your language has to change in order to really connect with each of these different buying styles. So it is very, very unique approach that you have to take. So now that we've talked about the science, I've shown you a little bit about why you should care about this, right? There actually is validity to this, and you're probably doing some of this wrong today, right? You've probably screwed up the sale, and I'm guessing most people on the call are right now thinking back to a sale that didn't happen or where you saw a sale fall apart because of this language, right? Because of not providing them the right information that they needed in that moment, because they were a different personality type than you were. And so I want to talk a little bit here at the end about our different solutions, and then we'll open it up for questions. And so our biggest solution is really our technology. And we've got a system that we call Bank Pass. Some of you on the call may have taken the online assessment where you can crack your code in less than 60 seconds and get a report. And that's really what we have. And what this allows you to do is have your own custom branded URL that allows you to send it to your own prospects and your own customers and clients so that you understand what their codes are, so that every touch that you have with them, every interaction, even after the sale, you make sure that you serve them and support them in the way that they need. So just a little bit, just to show you what the screens look like, where you actually move the cards around and you have them do this. And again, it takes less than 60 seconds. So for most people, it's a super simple way to collect this information from their clients. And when someone cracks their code on your personal system, what happens is they are sent a report that tells them a little bit about themselves. So think of it like a DISC report, a Myers-Briggs report, only a little bit shorter. And it tells them about their specific personality and their buying style. Again, because people are fascinated by learning more about themselves. So think of it like a gift, right, to that person for doing that assessment. But the most important thing is when they crack their code, they get their report. Behind the scenes, you get an extensive sales report that talks about their entire code, not just their dominant code, and what things to say and not say, and do and not do. I mean, all the way down to what time to show up for the appointment, and how to send the email ahead of time. I mean, we're literally giving you the different sales tips and triggers that are going to help you be confident and be more successful in dealing with that person, especially if their code is different than yours, right? So it's increasing that confidence and success rate. And actually, the most beautiful part of the system, the technology that we have, is every time someone cracks their code, it actually takes that information and stores it in a back-end CRM that you can go back and reference, or anyone on your team. So for those of you who have admins or office managers or other people that also interact with your clients after the sale, this becomes very, very important, because the office manager, if someone's coming in for a meeting and they're going to be the one greeting them or providing them information, can look that person up and understand, okay, Bob is a blueprint. So when he comes in, he's going to have questions about this. I want to make sure we include the process to help him understand this. And so it allows you, from a customer retention and service standpoint, to completely change the dialogue with every customer according to what that customer needs. And it allows your entire team to see that information, which is really powerful. And then what some of our top clients are doing, because they're collecting all of this information, they're understanding what their clients are in terms of their buying values and their buying codes, they're actually altering their marketing and funneling and segmenting their marketing according to what their customers' codes are. So for many of you who do marketing, you understand that the game is all about open rates and how much somebody clicks or engages with what you're sending them, right? Whether it's a Facebook ad or it's a newsletter that you send them an email. You don't want to go to all that work and then have nobody engage with whatever you've created. And so this science can be incorporated. We actually have marketing companies that are training themselves on this concept to be able to incorporate this into all of their clients' marketing materials, whether it's your website, your newsletters, your print materials. They're making sure that those materials are speaking either to all four types in one, or that they're custom tailoring the information according to what that customer is, to increase that engagement level with the customer, with your product or your service in your company. So it's really fascinating stuff on where this is being taken to. And it's just the beginning. I mean, because this is just something new to the market, but it really is the future of market segmentation. So all of that I've talked about, the bank pass, unlimited assessments. So just to give you a sense, for those of you who have ever done other assessments, a DISC, a Myers-Briggs, on average, the DISC assessment is between $50 and $60 per assessment, and takes 45 minutes to complete. So just to give you a comparison and contrast to what bank's assessment is, takes 60 seconds to complete, meaning I can ask a prospect to do that. I can never ask a prospect to take a 45-minute DISC assessment. They would think I was crazy, right? They would think I was psychoanalyzing them. But with the bank assessment, we just say, this helps us in our sales process to make sure we save you time and serve you better, right? So that we know what information to bring when we meet with you to make it worth your time, right? So it takes 60 seconds. And for us, we have a subscription model instead of a per assessment model, which is really our differentiator in the market right now, is we charge $129 a month for unlimited assessments, meaning you can go out and crack 10 people's codes and send them the report, or you can do 10,000 and it costs you the exact same amount of money. And your client never pays a dime for the assessment because you subscribe to that service and can provide that to them. So for a lot of businesses, just having this information is a game changer for their business and how they build their business and how they market it. But the piece that we took even a step further with this subscription model for this same price is we include all of our virtual training included in the exact same price. So there's no additional training costs to this, which really, if for all of our clients, makes this a no-brainer. That for $129 a month, I get 50 courses and 40 hours of virtual training, plus I get the Bank Pass technology and that back-end CRM that allows me to collect the code, and then actually the training tells me and helps me understand now what the heck do I do with it? Because just getting the code is not enough. if you've never been taught how to speak the other languages. And that's why we feel so strongly that we have to pair these together, because otherwise you've only got part of the puzzle, right? You can't fully have an impact on your revenue and sales without having both. And I included just a couple of screenshots in here of the virtual training. So when we talk about virtual training, we are not talking about webinars where you're clicking through slides and people are talking to you. We're talking about interactive virtual training where a person is on the screen fully training you in these concepts. And the beautiful part about our training for those actions on the call is that the entire training platform is broken down into 5 to 8 minute videos. 5 to 8 minute segments that you can do on a daily basis or in between meetings on your mobile phone. It's not meant to be a go sit somewhere for 6 hours and go through the training, because we believe that's not how people actually learn. People learn by learning a little bit, going out and practicing it, right? Learning a little bit more than using it in real life. And that's how you learn to speak a language. You don't go to a seminar to learn to speak a language. You actually have to train yourself and then use it and practice it and come back and train yourself some more. So our entire training platform is built around that learning and making sure that what you're learning is actually sticking. So you can see, we test you throughout the training to make sure that you're understanding and you're learning the concept and can then go apply it. So we've talked about a lot today. You kind of understand the concept and the pricing for what you get with the bank pass and the training. And I just want you to think about, when you're going to wrap it up here, what would one more yes per month mean for your business? One more customer, one more product or service sale. What about one more yes per week or one more yes per day? For most of our clients, this is changing the trajectory of their business and their family, because your ability to increase that revenue and increase the sales and therefore increase your referral source really is what builds your business quickly and actually makes it a whole heck of a lot more fun, because you're serving and you're connecting more with people versus just feeling like you're hustling and just talking to more and more people but getting the same results over and over again. So the last thing I'll leave you with here is that this is a concept that Brian Tracy, for those of you who know Brian Tracy, he coaches some of the most successful people on the planet. And one thing that I've always taken from my learning with him is that he says that if the return on the investment is greater than the cost of the training, the training should be something that you do. Because most of us do not invest enough in ourselves. And the difference between the middle class and the wealthy is that the wealthy actually invest in themselves. They realize they have to continue growing in order to get where they actually want to get to. So when you're thinking about $129 a month for the training and the system, what would it take for you to cover the cost of that every month for it to make sense for you to increase, your knowledge of this and be able to increase your business? And then one last plug here, just because we are launching this market, the reason you haven't probably heard about this is because it is new. And we've got a lot of science that's come out in the last year that people are now really starting to pay attention to about, and the case studies about how this is building businesses. We're looking for people who want to be trainers and for people who want to be referral partners or affiliates with us. So that might be you, that might be somebody you know in your network, but we would love to know them and be able to talk to them about the opportunity to engage further in this business, not just as a customer, but also as an affiliate or a trainer. So that's our presentation for today. All of my contact information, this is my personal cell phone, my email address, and our link to our website where you can find more information as well is on the screen. And here we're going to open it up for questions on the chat. Otherwise, you should be able to unmute yourselves if you want to do it that way as well. But we'll stay on here and answer any questions that anyone has. But if you've got to drop off, we appreciate you taking the time tonight, and we would love to further engage and have a conversation about how this could help your business.